No, that's not it. If I
Twist this.
turn and then play.
No, record.
Oh, Jay,
It's on. It's on. Come on, Jay. It's on.
we're broadcasting in. We're broadcasting again.
Well, I gotta work it.
God damn it. Okay. Andrew, thank you so much for working so hard on this. I was too fucking tired. I'm so glad you got this working. And you are using the right tape, right? You're not using the original 1954 Gojira tape.
No. And you know what? I stumbled. I was looking for more betas, but you know what? I figured for this one, I didn't. We had a window. We have a window. The monster just left outside. He was growling again. And I said, I have a short window. This might be the last communication we ever make. So I again taped over the tape we used last time. I don't know how many more re-records it has.
I hope the quality is still as amazing as I know beta tape is.
I agree. I feel, if anything, beta's known for its quality and its longevity. So it's a hope and a prayer.
Beta tape was the obvious winner of the tape wars. I don't know anyone who ever had VHS.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, VHS seemed like it was a nobody's game.
Yeah, it was like the bargain bin. Like what are these ever gonna do? Like, it'll never get better than beta.
That's why I was so surprised when we locked ourselves in here, and there are movies on VHS I've never even heard of. And if they're all this bad as the last couple have been, I mean, why would people buy into VHS?
I don't know. But okay, sorry. We're getting off on our movie rants here. Anyone who's listening out there, my name's Jason. I am here with Andrew. The pandemic hit. We were terrified because we understand what happens when we hear the word pandemic.
We know all too much. We know.
So what we did was we heard it on the news. We were frantic. We were running around. We saw the first store that was open. We ran into this old video store. We boarded everything up, and we've been waiting here ever since for someone to come help us. Since our cell phones have died long ago, the only way to get any kind of information out of here is to record our adventures in here. Adventures is a really strong word, but is to try and call for help through these beta tapes, and then we're sending them outside, and magically they keep being dropped back in the return box.
And I just, it kind of makes me think we're like the Carl Sagans recording on the golden disc that's going out into the universe. We don't know if anyone will ever hear these, but at the same time, we have to keep making them. We have to keep trying to make contact. Someone has to be alive out there.
We have to make first contact, Andrew.
Yes, we have to. I mean, who knows at this point, if all the humans are gone and there are beings out there, metallic or no, I am of the impression that only aliens are populating this planet now. It is no longer a human population.
I haven't heard a single human being outside in a long time. Granted, I'm not really paying attention. We have our own dilemmas in here. Last week, someone dropped something in the return box, and we can't open it.
It's locked.
So we've been searching the entire damn store looking for a key. We've been opening up VHS boxes. We've been opening up a couple drawers. I got stopped at the pop machine again, where I found an old squirt. And I am drinking that now. Yeah.
Ooh, you were saving that for a special day.
Well, today is a special day, Andrew. What now? I saw you were unwrapping something. What are you what are you eating?
Well, you ever have those cravings where you don't want what's so much in the container of the food, but you just want that layer of film of flavor that gets trapped to the actual paper and the wrapping of the food.
Cellophane. Yes, I love eating cellophane.
So I've actually I found some old popcorn bags, and there's still flavoring in there, and no kernels. So I'm snacking on that today. I really went heavy with the chocolate the past couple weeks, and I can feel the weight gain coming. And even in a pandemic, I want to try and look trim and slim. You never know.
This popcorn is delicious, by the way. Thank you.
It's 7 years old.
I mean, it's far better than the paint chips that we were contemplating eating. So this is delightful. What flavoring is this? It says butter, but what does that taste like?
Yes. I don't think it's truly butter. I think this is a margarine base.
Ooh.
Either way, remove the ER and it definitely tastes like butt.
Yeah. Oh, that is a correct assumption.
I got popcorn brain.
Ooh, butt flavor. Do love my butt flavor.
And
Okay.
I'm washing and kind of cooling that off because it can be a little spicy. Found a sun-kissed orange, so I'm having a little sip on that.
Very nice. Now, speaking of butt flavor, there is something I need to bring up before we get into the whole rigmarole of the day. The poop corner.
Ah,
You're sliding out grease puppies at an alarming rate.
I mean, eating raw margarine-based popcorn flavoring, it doesn't come at a cost, or it does come at a cost.
And that cost is almighty Andrew Fudge Bears.
Yeah, we sleep in an enclosed space, so I try to keep the night toots down. But sometimes these noxious fumes. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I understand because there's no way in hell we're going to go outside with aliens out there.
Right.
But your stink logs and beaver biscuits really need to be contained somehow. I mean, the chocolate hand-me-downs are just too much sometimes.
I tried to at least stop the encroachment on the rest of the carpet by building a wall of Disney oyster shell cases around the infected area. I figure that we get that high enough, that'll stop the smell.
Well, it is making an awesome plaster mud pool, so I appreciate the work you are putting into your chocolate shotguns.
I aim to impress. We don't have a lot, but we've got each other.
And your awesome peanut butter Wookie.
Oh, yum 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 yum.
Speaking of yum 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 yum, we had a rather pleasant experience with this week's movie.
I gotta say it definitely, much like the smell of my corner, caught me off guard.
It caught everyone off guard, and if anyone has any right guard, it's been months, and my deodorant has long gone. So please send us if anyone can hear us out there.
And and you make a good point. This movie, when I watched it, it had a musk to it. Just, and I say that and it sounds weird, but if you watch Unmasked Part 25, it is, you will know exactly what I'm saying. And I don't know if it was just the lighting or if it was something about that film quality, but there was something there. I'm like, ooh, yeah, this has got a musk to it.
Yeah. So, Unmasked Part 25. I didn't know this before we watched. Actually, I knew nothing about this before we watched it. I do remember I've seen two different covers for it. One VHS cover had a wrapped up mummy face, and then the other cover has half of a hockey mask face. And the mummy wrap face, I'm kind of wondering what the fuck, where does that come in? Because that wasn't part of the movie at all. But I digress. Let's get in. Let's
I'm with you.
Talk about this.
Because it's kind of like that cover with the mummy face or the surgical wrapping. It's pretty gruesome. And if I was a kid and I saw that, I would have been scared shitless, thinking
The mummy one's scary.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is going to be the scariest movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
When I would be very hard pressed to put a horror tag on this outside of the first 15 minutes.
So, I mean, before we jump into that, and I really wanted to dissect these two covers because they're wildly different. But I think let's discuss the covers near the end.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make a note of that on this old pizza box here.
Is that the one with the joke?
This whole pizza was a joke, Andrew. It was a frozen pizza that was never frozen, so it was a delicious, as the kids now say.
Yeah, well, we don't really have appliances here, so we just found a light bulb that was exposed and, just put the pizza right on top of it pretty much.
Sadly, it was an LED light bulb, so
Yeah.
it never really heated up.
It's like a weird easy bake oven.
So, Unmasked Part 25 starts off with lots of location shots around London, and a title appears up that says Hand of Death.
Specifically, they liked Big Ben.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I thought I might have put in the wrong VHS tape. So I quickly I ejected it. We looked at it really quick, and sure enough, the sticker said Unmasked Part 25. So we put it back in and we played it. It's directed by Anders Palm, and it's supposed to be a parody slasher film.
Yes,
But I'm going to argue that it's not parody.
It had some moments where it attempted to be, specifically in the beginning. And there's a couple here. They definitely followed a schedule of specific tropes
Yes.
that they were sure to include in this, for sure. But around like the 15-20 minute mark, it changes tone drastically.
So let's tell everyone what the movie is about.
Good idea. Start from the beginning.
Start from the beginning.
Okay.
Plot. So let's talk about the plot.
If I was to sum it up in a 2-sentence elevator pitch, I would say, how would I even phrase this?
So a masked slasher is coming back to town. He was away for a while. Unknowing party guests in a dilapidated apartment flat are having a party while our slasher hero, Jackson, is going around killing them one by one. The thing I like about this is because every kill is unique. He doesn't do the same kill twice. But then he goes back to the room after he kills 4 people and he meets Shelley. Shelley is a blind woman waiting for her date to arrive, who never arrives. And she mistakenly thinks that the slasher about to kill her is her date finally coming to meet her. One thing leads to another. They go back home. They have a very romantic, emotionally revealing evening.
Yes. Yes.
And then they start a relationship.
Yes.
It is a back and forth emotional roller coaster between a character who only has ever been called a monster and only ever knows about killing, and struggling with what he actually wants is a relationship or someone to see him as a human being. There's a ton of other things we're going to get into here, but basically it's a guy struggling with his own humanity or immortality, and knowing what he should do, knowing what he is supposed to do, knowing what he is going to do is constantly put on the page, which makes it for a very interesting, dynamically good watch, but failing at the same time.
Yeah, if I was to sum it up in 3 sentences, I'd say serial killer gets lonely, finds love, finds he loves killing more.
God, that's really good.
Like you said, it starts off as a serial killer movie, and it, like, when I say it starts off, I'm talking like after we get through the Big Ben intro credits, it's like killing nonstop and for no reason.
And we have the Harbinger like right away too.
Oh, dude, yeah, I wrote that down too. It was like, there he is. Got to have the crazy interrupting homeless guy sending out warnings.
Like it's a horror movie trope where a person called the Harbinger, the character called the Harbinger, and Cabin in the Woods did it best because they not only did it right, but they called it out and explained it. Someone has to warn our unsuspecting teens of dread that is coming. And this guy just, I mean, fucking just, but it was so ham-fisted in there. Like if it wasn't there, the movie could have moved along perfectly fine.
Yes, because it was something about like there was a child in this house that died.
Wait! Don't go in there. Don't go into that house. An evil child was born in there, and now he's come back from far away to avenge his birthplace. Now, none of us is safe.
Piss off, you drunken old
I
fuck.
tell you the truth. His presence is everywhere. You have been warned. You have been warned.
Oh, that was weird.
Too right.
It murders people, but make no mistake, there was no child at all.
Well, Jackson was the child. That's who he was referring to.
That doesn't mesh. That doesn't mesh with Jackson's backstory.
Well,
I know. It's
we'll get to that because I actually have notes on that.
oh.
I'm kind of stoked. I
Right
have a
on.
little bit of theory craft here, Andrew. I'm a little excited.
I like it because I was watching this going, wow, like I was pulled in initially in that first scene. They lit night scenes very well.
Right?
It was like I know they always use a blue filter to reflect moonlight, but it was so subtle, and the lighting in certain areas was actually quite complex.
Mm-hmm.
That they kept it consistent, but they didn't overblow. Like they didn't overdo it to where you couldn't tell other light sources. I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but I was really impressed with one scene when Jackson goes to meet his father. Or no, I'm sorry. It's after he kills everyone, and he's in the room at the party, and there's like a bathtub Mary in there.
Right.
And there's candles that are lit around that bathtub Mary. And the light from the candles is a really nice orange against, like, contrasting with the blue of the night. And like, if I remember correctly, the light was coming in through like slitted windows. So it was just a really well lit shot. I was so impressed.
So something that caught me off, this exact lighting scheme was attracted to me too, because the big new craze in film, probably the last 5 or 6 years, is blue and orange coloring. For years, for decades, it's been teal and orange. You know, you look at movies like Fight Club or like any movie of like the late 90s, early 2000s, everything had to be colored orange and green and teal. And even today, a lot of movies still do the teal and orange, but this one did blue and orange, which is a really fast-growing lighting scheme in movies today, especially action movies. So doing it back then, and I've seen other movies do it back then, but it felt very unearthly and wrong. But it was so pretty because you're right. It's the blue moon coming in mixed with the candlelight and having the warmth and the cold mixed together. I think there was a lot, and I don't know if the director understood what he was doing here, but there was a lot of good lighting theory and film theory throughout the film.
You know, this, outside of a story that lagged a little at the end, it was, you know, I think this film's biggest fault is that it misrepresents itself from the beginning.
Yes.
But I agree with you. There's some amazing stuff going on. Even the special effects for the kills is like I would say that's near Savini level. It's pretty fucking good.
It's exactly what I was thinking. So obviously the movie's taking a lot of its cues and influence, not only thematically but plot-wise from Friday the 13th.
Yes. Specifically, I felt Friday the 13th Part 3.
Oh, yes. And well, I mean, plot-wise, like in the story, like they actually have dialogue about how essentially Jackson is Jason Voorhees.
Yes.
Because in the story, his mother takes him away from his father. They move to America. They work at a camp. He is drowned in a lake, but comes back and kills counselors. It's like not only overtly obvious, but then they actually say today is Friday the 13th. So it was like hit on the nose. Like, we get it. Okay, just serve it home. Let's just keep knocking this out. But that's what slashers do, is they feed you the information. They don't like let you drip dry it.
Exactly. And even down to the weapons he uses to kill people.
Mm-hmm.
He uses that iron spear, pointed spear. He uses
The
knives. He
cleaver.
uses a cleaver, and you even have that Shelley character from 3 who is playing pranks on people and, has this whole world. And I actually really love that in the beginning where, a guy and a girl are walking to a party and the harbinger comes out, says, don't go to the party or don't go to the house. And as
Right.
they're walking down an alley, someone jumps out with a cleaver and holds the guy hostage by the girl. And they find out it's their friend. And he's like, oh, what? It's just a cleaver. And he goes to his car and he's like, oh, I'm going to show them something they'll never forget or something like that. But it's so much the Shelley, like, having his little secret box. He's like, it's my whole world in here. And it's all masks and makeup. And he likes pranking people. And as much as it was satisfying in this movie, because as much as you fucking hated Shelley in 3, and you're like, I wish this guy would die, which he eventually did, the kill scene of the Shelley in this one was horrific. Where Jackson came from behind, grabbed his face and ripped his skin off, and then tossed his fist through the back of his back and then held his beating heart to the camera.
So, okay. I have there's this constant dichotomy when watching horror films. Do you show the gore for a long time or do you show it really minimally? And the problem is that movies that typically show the gore for too long, you end up getting desensitized to it, so it becomes more comedic.
Yes.
So, first of all, if we have learned anything from this movie, is that all British people have wet tissue paper skin,
yes,
and brittle as fuck bones. Because he didn't forcefully throw his hand into the back of the guy's back.
Oh no, it was like he tapped him just a little too hard to get his attention.
And he pulled his face apart with the ease of opening up a craft single. And then he pushed through to grab his heart like he was reaching in for a grapefruit and thought, maybe not. I've been good. I'll have a grapefruit.
Yeah, it was almost like he was checking the heart's ripeness when he...
Yes.
It was a little squishy.
Which we should cut to Suburban Commando.
There is nothing more tasty than a ripe melon.
How do you know which ones are the ripe ones?
Well, you have to squeeze it a bit. And the softer, the better, I always say.
Wow, I found a good one.
Anyway.
God, I hadn't thought of that in years.
When we saw the heart come through, I was like, oh, cool. Wow, this is actually really good. And then they just held on the shot for the heart. I'm like, oh, okay, you paid a lot of money for that shot. I understand what you're showing us. But by showing it so long, it becomes comedic and it takes me out of the moment.
Yes. I'm with you there. It started off because, like you said, the face tearing was effective because it was a very short clip.
Yeah, and it was creepy.
And they cut back and forth to it a couple times. And just a note, because you saw the underneath the muscle and things like that, like the exposed muscle and whoever did the effects for this movie has a good talent for mummified, partially decayed people. Like some of the dummies that they had made for corpses were really good.
Oh my god, the corpses looked awesome.
Yeah.
Which again reminded me of Savini. So yeah. I think they were taking a lot of cues. What did we read in that Fangoria magazine? The person who did all the horror effects in this were the same people who did Hellraiser. Yes,
that's right. And that makes sense that a lot of these things are kind of held the way they are and why the blood looks very similar. It's that really deep crimson and everything similar to Hellraiser. Yeah.
So talking about the gore, and then we'll get on to a bunch of other things, but talking about the gore, during this time period, 89 or 88 came out in 88, the UK, especially Britain in specific were very anti-violence.
Yes,
Like,
they had the video nasty list, right?
yes, and I was surprised by how violent the scenes in this were. So I'm wondering if they played off some of the comedy to dull down the violence, similar to like when Evil Dead 2 came out. It was so hyper violent
Yes.
that what they did was like, they took the blood from a deep red to like a crimson, like bright fucking red, and everyone was like, oh, that's fine, that's comedy.
Exactly. And they were
Instead
like,
of
well,
the
it's 'cause
gore.
or it's bile, it's not blood, it's bile.
The bile, the green. Yeah. You're right. You're right. But by changing something like that, it deflates the gore aspect of it, especially during this time period. Like, the UK was super anti gory films. So anything coming out of the UK that had this kind of stamp on it, I mean, this movie never got a theatrical release. It went to straight to home video and then was forgotten about.
Yeah.
It wasn't until like recently that it came back up, had a 2K scan, and then started to get popularity again. So I mean, that's fantastic. It's a yeah. I mean, so the horror elements, the slasher elements that you know and love, like if you've ever watched any Friday the 13th, any Halloween films, it speaks to that level. But here's where the plot actually becomes far more unique
Yes.
than this movie gets credit for. So Andrew, take us down the path of the movie's uniqueness.
So this I loved and I hated it all at the same time at first, but then once I adjusted, I kind of really loved it. So Jackson, our killer, our hockey mask killer, he kills everybody in this oddly decorated house.
And why does he wear a mask?
He wears a mask because his face is all fucked up. Easiest way to say that. His face is, think he kind of looks like Sloth. 'Cause he's got a sloping eye
that never moves but always looks shiny.
Always. It's always cheerful.
And who decorated that house, by the way? Good God.
Oh my God. Some of the when I first started watching it, I'm like, all these kids or couples are in this flat, I guess. Would that be considered a flat or a house? I don't know.
It's a flat, but it's abandoned. Like, it's obviously abandoned.
Yeah, absolutely, it's abandoned. And there is just graffiti. Like, in one of the rooms, it's just like 6 men smiling is the graffiti.
Oh, yeah.
In other areas, there's like women painted on the wall, or like there's the one room, it's all red with like a star in the middle, and then there's like electricity coming out of it. Like, it is the weirdest decorating scheme, and it was either a punker house before it was abandoned or something. But so Jackson goes through, he kills everybody in a very Friday the 13th way. And so the blind girl is sitting there waiting for her friends in a room with a radio, so she can't hear anything. So Jackson comes in after killing all of her friends. He plans to kill her, but she offers him her hand in a handshake, thinking that they're friends. He wipes his hand off and shakes her hand, and she's like, yeah, come back to my house. So they go back to her house, and he's got his mask off, and his face has got like 3 big cuts on it, and he's got a sloping eye and a jacked up mouth.
And this is where he first talks to her, too.
Yes, this is their first conversation, and he really likes the fact that she can't see him. She can't see his face. She can see who he is. And she says all these nice things. She's like, oh, you seem like a nice person.
Because she's looking at the inside of him.
Exactly. But then, she almost steps over the line because she says, you could be a mass murderer. And he's like, what do you mean by that? Like, he got offended that she called him out by not knowing that's what he was. So they quickly get over their first little, bump in the relationship and immediately go to have sex.
Now, they don't show it.
By that. No, they did not show that.
They don't do the room sequence. They just cut right to afterwards. So it's assumed, which is really nice. And this is kind of where I'm like, okay, well, they had this like intimate, emotional conversation. I'm engaged with this. It's like, I've seen this done before. There was an amazing film called Behind the Mask, The Legend of Leslie Vernon, I think is the
That's
name.
what I thought it was, Leslie Vernon.
Okay, it's a fantastic film. If you like slashers at all, or horror, or anything that subverts or deconstructs genres, absolutely watch Behind the Mask. It is genius. But this movie came out 20 years before, and it's paving the way for something that has never been done, at least to this point. Now, the 80s were the height of the slasher genre. I think it's quoted as Silent Night, Deadly Night being the first slasher, but by anyone's true standard of at least good slasher films, and I'm sorry if I'm routing people out there, but it started with Halloween in 1978, 1979?
78 or 9, yeah.
Okay, so literally 10 years later, this genre has exploded to a precipice where now a film as this, The Unmasked Part 25, is not only making fun of the whole sequelness, using the Part 25 as like, okay, sequels are way out of hand. Here's a story that's, way, far down the line. But it's also poking fun at maybe these monsters that we call monsters aren't really monsters. Maybe they just need a hug. Maybe these people are just people. So there's a lot of stuff this movie is touching on in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, it gets really deep really fast, and it kind of does. And the whole time I was watching it, it made me think of another movie that, again, was a British movie. It was actually a Fangoria release. It was called iZombie.
Oh, yeah.
And where it's very similar.
The movie, not the TV show.
Correct. The movie. It's from the early 90s. But it's an introspective look inside a monster and what they're dealing with. And it opens the door, and we get to see him. He opens up about that childhood and all of that. And then we see him interact with his abusive father, which the only question I had on that part, Jay, was why is he still in communication with his dad?
So I want to get down this avenue as well.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and touch on this then, because I think this is really important, not only to the plot, but also to where I think they're hinting the story is.
Yes.
So he goes and sees his father after this night of passion and emotional, and I think the sex is there, but he's not like, that's not the driving force behind his emotion, because that someone sees him.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Please, you go ahead. I will shut the fuck up.
No. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to say I think you're right, because I think it's not about the sex, because he's not wearing his mask when he goes to visit his dad, and I think that's really important.
Yes.
Because I think that's showing that this girl that he met, this blind girl who loves him for him, has given him that confidence, and he's at that point where we're seeing that's what he's been looking for, and now it's that one step in the right direction that is bringing him to break ties with the abuse that keeps him chained down as a killer, which is his father. So we're like dipping our toe in that water with that scene.
Yes.
Sorry, that's what I meant to say. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Absolutely, and I think that's beautiful. I understood the mask not being on aspect, but I couldn't word it right, and I think you worded it perfectly.
Well, thank you.
So by him talking to his dad, first off, he tells Shelley that his dad died.
Yes.
And now we find out that his dad is still alive, so that means he's embarrassed by his father, or at least embarrassed by how his father treated him or raised him or whatever. So when we go in there, we get a ton of hinting at backstory.
Yes.
Where the dad's like, why don't you have your mask on? No one will ever love you. And this is where we learn that the mom did take him away to America. And then he kind of points at a photo, and we don't really get a clear image of the photo, but the photo looks crazy fucking old.
Yes.
Okay, and that kind of threw me off guard. At first, I thought, well, okay, it's just worn with time or like water stained, but it looks like sepia tone old school cameras. And then the dad goes into this whole diatribe about how after Jackson tells him, like, I found someone, I'm happy, I'm in love, And the dad says, you can't love anyone because no one is like us. There's you and me, and then there's everyone else. And your mom was one of them, and that's why you're half me or half us and half them.
Right.
And it got me thinking that, okay, they're playing on slasher lore here because slashers, they never die.
Right.
They always come back for the sequel. Something will kill them, but they come back. So maybe he's saying that the dad is immortal and he's passing that immortal gene onto Jackson. And it's not just like a killer, because I think if the dad was saying, well, it's like me and you are killers, but your mom wasn't a killer and you're half killer and half her, I think that's way too fucking basic.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think by saying that we're immortal, that we're part of this like slasher gene. And if you've ever read comics, anyone out there, there's an awesome comic called Hack Slash.
Yes. Oh, I love Hack Slash.
It breaks down what slashers are. It breaks down where they come from. It breaks down how they work. And it's really, really a cool concept. And it's been pitched to be made into a movie and a TV show, but it's in limbo right now. Fan-fucking-tastic book. Anyway, so if these guys are slashers, maybe like dad is like a slasher from like the 1800s, and he had a kid with a human woman. That's why Jackson is aging differently. The dad could be fucking old as hell, but Jackson could be maybe 50, say 60 years old, but he still looks like in his 20s.
Right.
So he kills his dad, knowing he kills his dad later on in the movie when the dad's like, "Fuck you, you do whatever you want, but you're not, And I think he full knows that he's just taking his anger out on him because the death comes out of nowhere. Like there's no giant build up for it.
Oh no, yeah, it just happens.
Yeah. So it made me think that he's just pissed at his dad, and his dad's not really dead. And this is just a new way of killing him when he crushes his head. So the idea that Jackson is well aware that he's immortal. And we see this again at the very end of the film, where it's ham-fisted in that we will see Jackson again. And I don't think that's like how Marvel does it, where at the end of the movies, you're like, oh, the next movies, you're going to have this. Or like the end of Masters of the Universe where Skeletor pops up out of the lava. He's like, I'll be back. Because they were planning for a sequel. Or like the end of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, exactly.
What this did was this pretty much said that Jackson is very self-aware that he is the movie villain and he can't die. Like his life is this torture of living forever doing this thing.
Right, and that's when he came to that realization. That is why, before the ham-fisted, we will see him again. That is why he went and he killed the one thing that loved him, because he knows he can't break that cycle, and he wouldn't want to subject her to that life.
Before all that happens, they have dates. It's really sweet. We see a slasher turn into a human being, and they go into Jackson is very self-conscious about walking around with his mask on because people are staring at him. So they go into a Halloween store and Shelley finds a identical hockey mask.
Yep. Because
it's at this point in time where we learn that Shelley says, "You remind me of the guy in that movie," and he's like, "Well, that is me." I'm like, you're a movie star? It's like, no, like those movies are based on me, and she's like laughs it off. So she wants to comfort him in possibly the cutest slasher movie thing I've ever seen. By fucking getting the identical mask and walking around town with him with it on. Oh my God.
Oh, I know. And he was a total dick about it too. Granted, he doesn't know. He's never had anyone try to make him feel good before. So she walks over to him with the mask and he's like, "Are you making fun of me? Fuck off." But then my favorite part of that scene is when the attendant came over and was like, "Normally we don't let people try on the mask, breath contamination." And I was like, oh, what?
That felt...
Look, you totally ruined it.
It felt very, like, get the fuck out of the store. Like, end this scene.
Yeah, and it was like the director, like, okay, let's end the scene. Let's do it, but we can't just have it end totally happy. He's got to say something to like push them out.
Right. Well, that seems like a kind of a writer's situation where the writers are like, okay, well, we want him to be angry and we still want Shelley to be supportive. How the fuck do we get out of this situation with still making Jackson look like a good guy?
Yes.
Get him the fuck out by showing a worse guy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that guy was pretty fucking bad.
So then Shelley's friends are going out to a pub one night. Jackson follows the friends to the pub, and all the friends think that Jackson is the actual actor from the movie Hand of Death. And they want to get his signature, they want to drink with him, and he won't talk to them. They get pissed off, and he ends up stabbing one of the guys.
Yeah, a very unpreparedness in that stab. There's a lot of hesitation.
Yeah, there was.
Because it's like they hit the close-up of when the knife was going to the gut, and then there was maybe like a 3 to 5 second pause where he was like, no. Okay, now.
It kind of makes me wonder if they only had a select amount of time shooting in there. Mm-hmm. And so the shooting schedule was like 18 days.
Yeah,
and
it was really tight.
For a feature-length film, that's pretty tight. So I wonder if they had a very small amount of time in there, and the dialogue took up the most of the time, and they were just like, let's just shoot this. We got one take, fucking do it right, and you're holding a real knife, so be very careful.
Yes. Make sure you hit the area with the pillow. Don't hit him, hit the pillow.
Yeah, exactly. So he runs away, which is really weird, but kind of understandable because he's been emotionally vulnerable lately.
Yes.
So he runs away from the conflict, which is, anti everything he is. And there was probably the funniest part of the moment when the guy and the girl stop in the alleyway after Jackson runs down it.
It's in there, all right.
Bastard! I'd like to rip his fucking face off.
Yeah, tear it to fucking pieces, eh, Christy?
All right, you go through there, and I'll go round the back and cut him off.
Hang on a minute. Why don't you go through there, and I'll go round the other side and cut him off?
What's the difference?
Exactly.
He was rather big, wasn't he?
Mean-looking bastard as well.
Did you see EastEnders last night? I didn't think much.
And they just, okay, yeah, you're right.
And then they just walk away.
That's one thing that that the tone really I noticed it too much, how quickly they would forget all these people. So he killed, 2, 4, 5 people inside the house, and then he went to meet his girlfriend. They never bring those people up ever again. She never asks about them. She's never
that
like,
bothered me.
oh, where's my friends? I'm concerned for my friends. She brought them up like, oh yeah, sometimes we like to go to movies or whatever. But then she's never like, oh, I haven't heard from them in a couple of days. Like it's like she doesn't care. And then we bring this new group of friends in, and there are so many individual cliques that are like dotted line related to this blind girl.
Yes.
That they never explain. They're just fodder for him to kill.
And then that's exactly what it is. And while we're on that subject of Shelley, there's a few issues I have here. One, why is her apartment decorated?
Yes.
Why does she have tablecloth? That seems like a tripping hazard.
She can get around very well. Like, she just started walking on some of those scenes when she was with Jackson, and she would stop, and he would be like, oh, did you want to go to the Halloween store? And she's like, yes. And it's like, oh, well, you're standing conveniently out in front of it, like she can see where she's going. So much of that.
And every time she's alone in her own apartment, the only, like she is doing what obviously all blind women do in their free time, is lounging seductively on a couch, posed perfectly as if waiting for it to be painted or someone to call and do something with. That's what blind women do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They just that's their natural state in seductive lounging mode. I just my favorite was when she walked in with Jackson when they had just first met, and she turns on the radio and just does that impromptu dance out of nowhere. And I was like, A, very well choreographed. B, what? What?
Okay, so well, that makes me think that the director probably had that one really sexy encounter when he was really young, because that's what happens. Like when you meet someone when you're really young, you have to do that little show dance before you do anything sexy, because it's like, well, I want to turn you on. It's like, that's not turning me on.
Yeah.
You should stop doing that now. But like when I was young, I remember my girlfriends doing that. It's like, oh, I'm gonna dance sexy. It's like, dude, you've watched Cinemax a couple times and you missed the fucking point.
Yeah.
But that's what it felt like. So, fucking dancing. Let's talk really quick about some of my favorite quotes from the movie.
Yeah.
Because there are some good ones.
Oh, there are some zingers here.
There are some really good ones. Jackson Lane in bed says, "Look at Hitler.
I can never feel guilty for the things I've done. Do you understand? It wasn't my fault. What about Hitler? He was a battered child, wasn't he? And look what he went on to do."
Wow.
Oh my God.
That was fantastic. So at the same time, then they start talking about like their first sexual encounter. And Jackson is telling her about the first time he had sex.
Oh God.
Was a camp counselor.
The first time for me was with one of those camp counselors. She was dead.
I suppose we're all a deadly now and again.
One of my favorite parts, because there was a lot of sex talk in this movie. One of my favorite scenes that I can't believe I'm just remembering to talk about with you right now is a little later in the movie, after they've established their relationship as a very sexual couple. The bedroom scene where she's asking him to do things, and essentially she's, if I was interpreting this correctly, she's trying to peg him.
So there's a lot more leading up to this. So before this happens, they say they want to be honest with each other. They want to be open with each other. They want to talk about their feelings and what their desires are.
Do you have any hobbies?
None that you'd approve of.
Some of my best friends are into whips and things, and tying people up.
This leads to a BDS&M scene where she's like, well, let's introduce some toys.
I keep a few things in the drawer by the bed.
God! You could kill someone with this thing.
He was terrified of it.
Which I thought was hilarious, because throughout this whole scene, we learned that the quiet person is the freaky one, and the outgoing person is the extremely reserved conservative one, which speaks very highly to sexual relationships. Usually if someone's very boisterous and like I fuck all the time, it's like those are the people who are like, oh my God, she was on top of me and it was amazing. And I know this is a podcast and this is getting really weird. But the people who are like all meek and quiet, those are the ones who pull out the fucking, giant pill boy butt pluggers. And it's obvious that she was really into domination. But what's really cool is that most of the times in the domination field, you're either a dom or a sub.
Right.
She was very apt and to be both. She was very apt to be submissive or dominated. And
I found that interesting as well.
I loved it that she was open. She's like, okay, this is my new boyfriend. I want to introduce him to what I like. So I'm willing to do this for him to see my real self. So I honestly think Shelley is the breakout fucking star of this movie.
Who's this?
She was so progressive. It goes along with, it was thought-provoking how progressive this film is in so many different areas.
Agreed.
Whereas Beyond Darkness last week tried to blend a lot of different storylines into one movie and try to make them work, and it didn't. This brought in thematic qualities that really, I feel, would resonate if people would go back now, like younger teenage kids, college kids, with everything going on, and I guess for lack of a better way to say it, a sexual revolution of sorts, like
Yeah.
I feel like this would appeal to a lot of people based off of those qualities. They could find a way to connect with both Shelley and Jackson.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's why it resonates so well in this age. And I think that's why this movie will stand the test of time longer than the movies it's making fun of.
Yeah, I'm gotta say, I'm just really impressed with what they brought to the table here. I know it's meta and it's supposed to be a parody and all of this, but they really created something special here. They really, really did.
I agree.
This is I can't believe I've never heard or seen of this in all of the movies we've watched and all of how we like bad movies and all that stuff. Like, I can't believe that this has never come onto our radar, because this is, like you said, it will stand the test of time because of how open it was to ideas and exploring things that at the time were funny, because there's like a quick laugh, ah ha ha, BDSM, ha 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 ha, he's scared of a dick. But that has shifted, that viewpoint has shifted to exactly what you were saying, the openness, and it kind of encompasses everybody. All those like Jackson is really he is an outsider. He's that Elephant Man character that
right,
who don't fit in and fit outside that normal category can really identify with. I gotta say, I'm surprised there's so much positivity coming out of us. To truth be told, this is not a very entertaining movie in points.
It is not. No.
There are points that are rather boring, and I found myself checking the timestamp quite frequently. Like, okay, it's an 88-minute movie. How far? When a new group of kids would get introduced, it was like, oh. And how do we care? How do we know them? How do we care about them?
Right, right.
We didn't, and it was fodder, like we said.
So that's two aspects I want to touch on. Number one is the kills felt lackluster after a while.
Yes.
And the one thing in slasher films, there's a rule that if you're being chased by a slasher, the slasher will usually hit the weapon on a piece of wood or something else and show the destructive power. So when it actually hits the person, it feels like it's that much more powerful.
Yes.
So that's why Jason usually gets his machete stuck in a piece of the house and he has to pull it out, and then he hits the woman, and then we're like, oh God, it did that much damage to wood. What would it do to my flesh?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't do that in this. They just went straight for the kill. So it made it a lot less stressful, a lot less tension filled, which made it lackluster and boring. Because I think they weren't going for the aspect of the exciting kill. Because when you watch a slasher film, let's face it, you're not watching the movie for the plot. You're watching it for the plot's clear cut. We know what the plot is going into it, every single one of them. But we watch it for the creative kills, and we watch it for the emotional kills, because you're supposed to get to know a character a little before they kill him. This movie didn't do that. They killed everyone except for Shelley and the dad.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much without a lot of character buildup. So we weren't attached to them. So we had no emotional attachment going into it. So we felt the lackluster feeling that Jackson was feeling throughout his life. And we see this mostly at the end of the film at the cabin, where the 4 or 5 friends are getting together, and he starts killing people out in the woods. And he even comes out and says it.
Go ahead. Scream if you like. To be perfectly honest, I'm really starting to get bored with the whole thing.
You're the guy from the pub, aren't you? The one that attacked Nick.
Ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, fine. So I have to kill. I have no choice in the matter. But you'd think they'd let me try something else as well. I do have other talents. No sense bothering to run for it, really. You'll get 10 feet maybe and run into a branch or stumble over a root.
And sure enough, she runs away.
See? What did I tell you?
He kills her, and he's like, good, another kill.
Yep, it pans out exactly as he predicts it will.
It just feels lacking here because Jackson feels lacking in his life.
Right.
So having the zero buildup, having we don't care anymore we feel that Jackson doesn't care. Like, this is just another day at the office for him.
Right, exactly.
Previously in the film, we realized that Jackson is an actor.
I lived with the animals. I taught myself everything. Some of the less fortunate camp counselors would leave books behind. I read them all over and over again.
Because he spent all of his time reading books at the camp when his mom took him to America.
Mm-hmm.
And he memorizes poetry, he memorizes plays.
My life is in its last hour, that I know. Nor would I redeem a moment of that hour. What I have done is done. I bear within a torture that could gain nothing from thine. Thou didst not tempt me, and thou couldst not tempt me. I have not been thy dupe, nor am I prey, but was my own destroyer, and will be my own hereafter.
And he's a pretty damn good, like, he gave that monologue.
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit, man.
Yeah, whoever they got to play Jackson, I can't remember his name, he really brought 100% to this role. I mean, even knowing what it probably was going to be, he really outshined everybody else with some of his dramatic, like, once the mask was off and it was just the makeup on his face and him exposed, he was awesome.
And his dad, oh my God.
How long have you been going around like that with your face hanging out about all over the place like a goddamn leper?
Just a day. I've left my mask somewhere. I don't know where.
You've got no brains, boy. There's nothing in that head of yours up there.
But he fucking chewed that scenery.
And a lot of the dialogue was a little ham-fisted and tropey at times, but even then, like, it was so impressive. Like, his delivery.
Like, really impressive.
Guess we'll just have to get you another one.
I haven't any money.
Oh, well, no, I don't expect you to. But you could have lots of money. You could just take their wallet.
I won't steal from them. Isn't it bad enough slashing their throats?
But you gotta live. And you've got to kill.
Again, I kept asking myself, I was like, why does he keep going back to this asshole? And it was like one of those things. I couldn't get the dad was so convincing as an asshole. And even how the dad and Jackson played off each other, I mean, it felt so natural.
We have watched a lot of bad movies sitting in this movie store, and we've watched a lot of bad movies before this. And probably the long-tested number one rule of a bad movie is you're going to have bad acting.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's really fun. Sometimes it's cringy. Sometimes it's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But having a movie that's actually trying to do something intelligent, that's trying to break the mold and have good acting, it kind of forces you to pause yourself and pay attention because it was actually pretty good. The biggest problem I think I had with this film was it didn't know what it was doing, and it didn't know how to go about doing it.
Yeah, they had a lot of big ideas. A couple of them were built up very well, poor execution, but they were at least, they knew what they were trying to say, unlike Beyond Darkness trying to do it with Catholicism and religion and being very heavy-handed and preachy. I feel like they touched on this enough to keep me intrigued with the themes, but they could have done, honestly, they didn't need to do the ending. I would have been more interested in seeing a relationship drama at that point.
Me too. Me too. I wish they would have gone down that alley a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, like, I appreciate the mental awareness of, you know, I can never break the cycle of being a murderer, and knowing that no matter how hard he tried to change, it was inevitable that he would always end up back. Like, this was his destiny. Like, they could have done that in, you know, a 60-minute movie. Granted, they wouldn't have had the full-length feature airtime, but they could have done it in an hour. Based off what they had, if they just excluded those pointless killing scenes with the other groups of random people, it would have been more effective.
I think that's why this movie isn't a parody.
Yes.
I think the parody aspect is when you make fun of something, where you see something that the movie is doing and you copy it and you change it for comedic elements. yes, they had comedic elements, and some of them were very badly timed, like they weren't paced well or, put well into the story. But this wasn't a parody. This wasn't, the Scary Movie franchise. This wasn't, I Know What You Did Last Summer when your grandma came to my knife shop and bought a bunch of knives and was cackling on the way out, part 3. It was very self-aware, and I've always called this a serious parody, and I put that on the likes of like Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz, where they're obviously poking fun at the zombie movie, at the action movie, and this one's poking fun at the slasher movie. But they're doing it in a way where the film itself is taking itself seriously while still kind of dancing around the topics that make it fun or make it cringy.
Mm-hmm.
So by itself taking itself seriously, it becomes meta. And the ending is where I kind of lost me. I love the idea that he's very self-aware, that he's self-aware of what he is, about his role in life. And I don't know how to take the last scene where he's going up to Shelley and Shelley's like, we can live together. It's going to be amazing. I'm pregnant.
Jackson, I'm pregnant. I'm going to have a baby. Our baby.
Oh, yeah, I forgot the pregnancy. I forgot about that.
And he goes, well, that makes this worse. And then he slashes her throat.
Forgive me.
But so this is all, very Shakespearean. And he sits down in front of her dead body and stares right into the camera.
It's a hell of a life being a monster. It's a hell of a life.
It's obvious that he knows he is in a play, or at least he thinks he's in a play or in a film. That felt very staged rather than cinematic.
If only there was something more. It just all seems so pointless. The real monsters are out there. I hope you understand. If only there was something more. It just all seems so pointless.
And then him walking down the street, which really quick, I just want to make one fucking note because it was bothering the shit out of me. Usually when you watch a movie and you see people on the street, walking down the street of New York or London, perhaps, everyone walking around is going about their business. Right. Because on a normal movie, they block that part of the street off and hire extras.
Mm-hmm.
This was not the case.
Oh, no.
There is a lumbering 6-foot-something dude walking down the street in a trench coat and a hockey mask that's fucking bloody.
Yeah.
And everybody and their brother is staring right into the camera as the camera rolls past.
I know, it was fantastic.
I was like, okay, so that's like my life goal is whenever I see a camera, I don't look into it because I know how pissed off I would be as a creative seeing that. I'm like, just fucking look somewhere else.
I don't have the opportunity where cameras are on me a lot, but I know that I would be very guilty of looking at the camera.
Would you really like if there was like a family out having a picnic, taking like a family photo? Would you be like, oh, I want to be in this?
I don't think I'd force myself into a situation where a camera would be on me.
Yeah.
If someone was like taking a home movie or doing something and I happened to be in the camera, I know I would like probably turn and look at it, and I'd probably look directly into that lens and I would just stare it down. I just know I'm that guy.
So the very end is the end of the movie. We do a 3-shot structure where it cuts back to a further and further shot where Jackson is self-aware that it is the doom ending because he is immortal and he is doomed to keep repeating his hellish life over and over and over. which I thought was a beautiful, perfect. I could not think of a better ending than that for what they were trying to go for. I think thematically, it was absolutely on par.
I agree.
I think as a whole, there's a whole lot of problems with the movie. But overall, wildly happy with this film.
Yeah, me too. I never thought that we would have one where we would have such an in-depth, thoughtful kind of film analysis as opposed to, haha, it's bad. Let's like what happened with Vice Academy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, like this was a really quite a breath of fresh air.
There are some things I must tell you about myself. It's very difficult.
Don't be scared. I want you to feel like you can tell me anything. I'll understand.
Perhaps you should have known before.
It won't change anything.
I started to explain earlier. They think I'm a monster.
We're all a bit of a monster. First thing in the morning, I'm a terrible bitch.
Quite a diamond in the rough. I don't know if I would go back to The Well and watch it often, but I think if I was ever in like a melancholy mood, I feel like this would be a really good film to put on.
You're right. I'm not going to go back and rewatch this anytime soon. If I had the chance to watch the director's commentary, I would jump at it like now.
Oh God, I want to hear
that. Would be really interesting.
I want to hear everything about it. Like I want like one track to talk about the theory and what the intent was.
Yes,
and I want to hear it from the actual production side of like, well, this is where we found this house, and like I want to know the story behind some of these sets because the set design was insane.
The set design was unique as hell. It speaks wildly to the characters in the movie that they want to have sex in an obvious crack house.
Oh my God, it was so dirty in that room.
It was so filthy.
And she was down. And then
she was ready, man.
Yeah, and then she went up a ladder to go to the bathroom.
Which gives me hope, Andrew, because I want women in my life again. We've been in this video store for far too long.
I agree. It gives me hope that maybe there's a ladder hidden somewhere where we can get to the roof without having to go outside.
I really hope there's a ladder to a bathroom because your fudge brownie corner is getting out of control. On that note, I have a few more tapes here.
Ooh.
I'm putting them behind my back. Oh my God, I'm getting too fat, dude. We really need to start stretching. If the doors ever open up and this apocalypse ends, we got to be able to fight the aliens.
That's just so much effort, and I'm tired. You know, I go on sugar. I get big sugar crashes. The sugar it only gives me energy for a couple minutes now. Before it was like I was like a hummingbird, but now it's just I just needed to stay awake, but I just keep crashing.
All right, Andrew, I have 2 VHSs behind my back. Pick left or right hand.
Right hand. Oh, it's gonna be a good one.
Roller Gator.
Oh no! Oh no! I've seen the cover. Oh no! Oh, it's gonna be really bad. It's gonna be really bad. Seriously.
Okay.
So bad.
So should we pop this in now?
Oh, fuck.
I think the
recorders. Hold on, let me go check this real quick.
Call for help real quick.
Okay.
Before we go,
we need to let you know again.
We are in the video store.
We're trapped.
You can call us. We found a phone with a phone number.
It is area code 2.